Hi guys, this is Vishal here from DrapCode. So in this video, we will see how to use AWS Lambda to make API calls in DrapCode. So in previous video, we have seen how to call DrapCode Developer API, how to fetch data, how to create new records, how to update new records. But those we have seen via just API, right? With directly giving hard-coded values in the Lambda function. So here we'll see how to give dynamic values. Let's say I'm creating a project. So this is a collection called project and it has some offers, some project settings, payment terms. Now let's say I'm creating a new project and I'm only taking title and start date from the user, and I want to populate description and price on the basis of some settings, some permutation combination, or some complex algorithm I have. So I want to save this data, then run a cloud function, a API call, which will do rest of the thing, then update or insert the values back into this particular collection. Or we can see an example. So like let's say a loan repayment schedule. So if someone gives the loan rate of interest, time and the amount, and then we want to generate a repayment schedule. Basically we want to create something new. So that is also we'll see here. So let's say we'll create a project, and project has a project settings, and we will create a new project settings object and then assign to this particular project. So let's see how both of these things can be done using AWS Lambda as a cloud function. Okay, so to access developer API, the very first thing we need to do is to go to developer API and enable this developer API, which I've already done. Okay, and then you generate your access token, which you can generate using these icons, right? So this will generate a API key. So these are needed to access the developer API. And to call API, we are going to use DrapCode SDK. So we already have a Node.js SDK, which you can install via npm install, or you can just download it as a zip file and include in a project, right? So for this video, we are using AWS Lambda. So we have already downloaded it and then included in the Lambda function. So we've already included this SDK here, which is included in the project. And this is a very basic settings which are needed to start any project, any developer API. So these are the settings which you get by default. Uh, Apart from this, so something like this you get when you create a new Lambda function. So I've added one setting, basically which environment we are handling, which is a basic if else. I have given the developer API key because these are going to change on the basis of whether I'm working in preview environment or I'm working in the live production environment or maybe beta environment, right? And this is the URL which you have to give. So this is basically specific for each project. So this is the URL which is mentioned here, freelance API, right? So each project has a unique URL. So you need to give the URL and the key, right? Because these two are needed to make further API calls. So I'll just remove all those things. Now what I want to do, I want to create a project, and as soon as the project gets created, I want to hit external API to do some computation, some complex logic to create the price, and some maybe some third party call to get the description and update the project object. So let's see how that can be done, right? So for now, I just leave it as it is. Okay, now let's go to the project. Okay, so here we have this create project form which takes several things, but let's say I don't want to take all these things. Okay, I think we have logged out, so let me go and log in again. So projects, post a project. Okay, let me just create a copy of this, or let's create another page. Okay, I don't want to mess up my existing flow, so I'm just creating a new page. I'll just copy this page from existing page, which is post a project. Post a project. Okay, only client can access it. Client team member, fine. So just create a cloned copy of this page. Okay, so here I'm not taking project settings. Maybe I'll create it. I'm just taking the title. I'm not taking description. I'm not taking price. Okay, only title and start date. Rest of the things we'll update from cloud function. Okay, now let's go and create an event. So I'll go to the event and create an event. So now I'll just create a very simple event. That's all. So I'll do very simple thing, save data. That's all. In which collection? Project collection, success, error. Okay, and maybe after that, take the user back to the project list page, client projects. I think that's the project list page. That's all. I'll go back to my page and then give this function, bind this event, post a project and update via AWS Lambda. That's all. Okay. Now I'll give, let's say, P1 and started something. So when I submit this, it will create a new project, but it will have only these two values. So let's go to the collection, project collection. It has only two values. Now I want to update this description and price from lambda function on the basis of some complex computation. Okay. So now I need to call a API, right? So what we'll do, we'll first create a developer API, call an external API. From external, we create an external API, which will eventually call DrapCode developer API. Okay, I'll say create external API. Let's okay. Post call, get call, it depends how we are handling the parameters there. So it can be get call, post call. So let's say I make it get call. Now which URL to call? So in Lambda function, you get a unique URL for each function. So copy this URL. That's all. Now I want to send some data. Okay, so I want to send some collection data, because how do I know which particular project to update? So I want to send the UUID of that particular project. So I'll call it project. Headers, I don't want to send anything. Params, I want to send, let's say, project UID. Let's say, okay, the value. What is the value? I'm saying whatever my project is getting created, send its ID, which is UID. That's all. That is what I want to send. And no other data, right? Because if we are sending it in body, then we can use custom fields or this raw JSON. But as of now, we're not sending anything in the body. We are just making a get call, which will send in the URL, and that's all. After success, we have two options. Either we can process the response, we can update the same collection with the response, or we can update the collection directly from the Lambda function. So for this example, we will just update it from there itself. We will not send any response back. Okay, I'll just save settings. That's all. A simple Lambda function, which is just sending the UUID of this particular project to the Lambda function. Now let's go and bind this event. Let's bind this to the event. So now instead of page redirect, I'll just delete it for now. And I'll say, after saving the data, make an external API call and send this UID. Which external API? This project API. Okay, it's API call, just a message where I'm just saying that we have called this API, and after that probably redirect to the project page, client projects. So now we have added one more step where we are making a call to this Lambda function, and this is the Lambda function which we are using. As of now, we have not handled anything, that how we are going to handle the parameters. So first of all, we'll just print all the parameters. So the data come in string. So I've just event. So I just displayed all the parameters. After this, we'll maybe put some logic to get the UID from this the data which we are getting, and after that we'll make a update call. So this is the handler which we have created for DrapCode API, which takes the DrapCode base URL, which is the URL. This is API key, which is the developer API key, which I've already mentioned how you get from the developer settings, and then the environment. So as of now, we are working with the preview environment, so I've hard coded it to preview. Right, that's all. So I deploy these changes, come back here. So this is CloudWatch, where you can see the logs. So here you can go to monitor, and from here you go to view CloudWatch. There you can actually see the logs of this particular Lambda function once it get executed. So as of now, there are some logs, but these are old ones. So it's 18 to 12. So we'll check the logs after this. So I've updated my events. Now if I go and post a new project, it will first save the data, then call this Lambda function. Right. So let's create another project. Let's say P2, some start date, submit. So this time it has success and then API call. That means it has already called the Lambda function. Refresh. So 1812 was the last API call. Now we have 1829. Let's go and see. So here we have printed everything, whatever we are getting. This is what we are getting: project UID and the UID of that particular project which just got created. So either we can pick it from here or we can pick it from here. Query parameters and JSON. So I think this makes sense because this is you can easily pass it. So I'll just copy it, come back here, and let's say let project UID is equal to something like this: event dot query parameters dot project UID. So this way you basically get the project UID. If you want to print and see how this looks like, you can just do a console.log event.query parameter project UID console.log. You need to know some coding, either Node.js, Java, .NET, whatever you want to use, Python, so that you can use it in Lambda function. I am using Node.js because I'm comfortable with it, but it's completely up to you what language you want to use. Project UUID plus this one. Okay. Now I want to make an update call. So we already have a DrapCode handler, DrapCode API handler. So I'll say this dot update call. Let's go and see what all update methods are available. So in the documentation, I can see get item update item with UID, right? So you want to basically update a specific record with UID. So I'll say update item with UID. The parameters which it is accepting, its collection name, UID, and the body, right? So collection name is okay. So I'll tell you how to get the collection name and how to get the field name. Let's go collections, list of collections. So here you see this green icon. So this has all the settings which are specific to this particular collection. It has all the name of the fields and everything. So you're not going to use the titles, you're going to use the fields. Let me give you an example. So let's say these are all the fields in the collection, and this field name is okay. So let's talk about this one. So this says start date. The name is start underscore date, everything in small letters. But if you go in the title, when you have created the field, you have created like start space date and as NDR capital, right? But internally we just lowercase everything and remove the any special character and spaces and replace it by underscore. So these are the type of names which you have to use in the API, because API is not matching with the title, it is matching with the actual field name in the collection, right? So in our case, the project name is project. So I'll say project. Then UID we already copied here, and the JSON body, right? For JSON body, we'll just create a parameter. Let's say let project JSON. Now we want to update the description and the amount. Now let's go and see what are the fields for these two. So I'll just check the fields. TNet is not there. Title we already have. Description. So I'll just copy this field description. I'll come back to my JSON. Give the keys description. Value I will generate on my own, right? And the next field is price. So this is the price. And here I can put my own logic. Maybe, I don't know, I want to maybe call ChatGPT and generate some description, make another API call, get it from somewhere, or even hard code it in my function. Okay. So via API price, it's a number, so I can just pass it directly. So let's say price is 2900. Okay. This is my JSON which I want to update for this particular record, right? Now I think this Lambda function is ready. I'll just format the code. So what we are doing, we are saying take the UUID for a particular project or collection, run some computation, calculate the value of description and price, and then update it back into that particular record, right? So that's all. Let's create another project. So let's say P3, some start date, and I'll just submit. This time the form got submitted, and it's called the API, and we are here. Let's go and see the project. So there should be another project which should have description and price, what we have mentioned in the Lambda function. You see, P3 description, price 90, what we have mentioned in the Lambda function. Now if I go to my Lambda function and if I go and check the logs, it should have done all these things. So these are the latest logs. Here, this is all the data which we have received. This is the UID of this particular new record. So we have got the project UID, environment, and then we have made a update call, right? So this way you are able to compute the data outside of the platform using some custom code. You can run any complex algorithm. You can, maybe you have some IP, you have some rules. You can basically run it here in the code of your choice and then update it in DrapCode collection. Now let's say I also want to create a project settings. Okay, so let's go to the project settings and let's see how it looks like. So it has some field, default title, default description, default price. Let's go and create a new collection. Let's go and create a setting for this particular project setting. So project setting is there. Okay, let's create one project setting and update the project status, right? So here the name is project settings. Let's go and check the update create API. This is how the API to create a new item looks like. You create item, give the name of that collection, and then the body, right? And these are the body parameter. So let's go. So I'll say let project settings JSON project setting. Okay, so this is the collection, so I'll just keep it here for now. Okay, let's see all the fields. So in the fields, couple of fields are by default, you don't need to give their value. These are all system generated fields. Okay, I think after 5 or 6 you have actual field. First is the default title. Okay, so I'll call it default title, some value which we'll give. After this, the next field is default description, then default price, number field. Okay, after this, commitment type. I think this is a static option, so we can give static option as well. Let's see the values, which is full-time, part-time. So I'll say it's part-time. Let's see if there are other fields. Then this is payment term, but this is a reference field. So in case of reference field, you will have to give the UUID, which we don't have as of now, or we can go and check. So let's give the payment terms also. Payment terms, here I have to give UID, and UID usually go in array because it can be multiple. So let's go and check the payment terms. So these are the payment terms objects: milestone based, full advance, after delivery. So let's say I want to use after delivery. So I'll just get the UUID of this particular record. Because this is a reference field, hence we will have to pass the UUID. Okay, so now we have created an object which has some of these values. Let's give some default values. Let's say default title is via API. I call it one via API. This question is one via API description. Price is, let's say, 200, part-time, and all this, right? So this is all correct. Now let's go and call this method, which is create item. We already have the handler created, which is DrapCode API. So I'll just call it DrapCode API dot create item. We have copied the collection name previously, so I'll just paste it here. In the project settings, create another item and give these values, right? And then we take it in a variable. So let's say let project settings is equal to, So this will basically create a new project settings with all the values which we have given here and return it here. Okay, I think, but it will not work like this because it will print a bit later, but let's try. Since this is going to be a synchronous call, so I don't think this will get printed, but the values will get created. Okay, you have to apply some weight or await or something so that you can basically use this value, but let's try. Okay, so now as soon as I create a new project, it will also create a new project settings object, and it will update that project as well, right? So this time let's change the price to 3900, description 2222 via API. Okay, and this new project setting. As of now, let's go and check the project settings. So 3, let's check the projects. 1, 2, okay, I'll just delete few of them. P1, P2. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now let's go and create a new project. So this time it will create a project, it will update the project using that Lambda function, and it will also create a new project settings using the same Lambda function. Okay, so let's say P4, some start date, submit. Saved in the database and made a call to the developer API, DrapCode API using Lambda function. So let's go and check. Project P4 got created. Description and price are coming from the Lambda function, and date we've already given. This is auto-generated ID. Okay, and here there should be one more project settings. 1 by API, description, price, part-time, after delivery, all these things, right? These are the values which we have given. If you go and check the logs of the Lambda function, so here you see the project got created. Obviously it didn't print because the line below this have already got executed by the time the values are coming, right? So you may need to apply that some wait time. So just you wait for the response before printing it. So we have not waited, we have just made a call, go and create an item, and got executed to the next page. By the time it came to print here, the record may not have been created, and then it continued to the next step, right? So those are all logic which you can apply in the programming, but this explains how you work with an external cloud function for complex scenarios where you want to write some custom code, but that is not available by default. Maybe there is no functionality available to do it directly, so you can always make an API call using external APIs, and from there you run whatever rules, whatever computation, whatever algorithm, whatever complex logic you want to execute in the programming language of your choice. And once you have the output, just insert that output back in the DrapCode collection using developer API. Use cases could be, let's say you want to run a prompt, you want to basically compute something or get some output on the basis of complex prompt. So you can keep the prompt, you can call the ChatGPT API. Although we do have support of ChatGPT as well within DrapCode, but let's say there is some use case, some scenario you don't want to give that prompt, or let's say you don't want to use that prompt here, or maybe it is some complex computation of several API calls. So you can do it in a separate cloud function or in an independent project, run everything there, get all the data from DrapCode via these external APIs, compute and run everything there, and then insert the response back so that it can be used further in your application. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you again in the next video. Bye bye.